On today's episode of Tips from the Top Floor, Dave is curious about sensor dust, how bad it is and what you can do about it. Dougal wonders why his pictures don't pop as much as he thought they would when he shot them. Photoshop is 25 years old and it's the 10-year anniversary of Tips from the Top Floor. This episode is brought to you by discoverthetopfloor.com, a place to learn photography, a place to photograph amazing destinations together with like-minded people from all over the world. You can now register for an amazing Ethiopia photo tour in January 2016, a true adventure, or the breathtakingly beautiful Donegal in Ireland in September 2015. And I'll be back in the United States, San Diego and New York, both in early October, and both events getting close to selling out too, so you better hurry. Find out more at discoverthetopfloor.com, discoverthetopfloor.com. This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 680 for Thursday, April the 23rd, 2015.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, all right, from the top floor.
Hello, my name is Dave Horn. I'm in Vacaville, California, and I love your podcast, and I've been listening to it for a while, and it occurred to me I hadn't heard you talk about cleaning your sensor, and I've had trials and tribulations with that, and wanted to get your ideas on it. I tried the wet version. I didn't like that so much, and I found myself that just using a little brush, a little special, very fine brush that I buy for that sort of thing usually work best for me. I also am wondering how the heck do those smudges sometimes get on my sensor when I don't have it open to the world. I think there's little gremlins that must be getting into my camera sometimes. I find smudges in there. And the other thing is how do you find those spots on your sensor? The best way I've found is to turn the f-stop all the way up to the highest number, take a picture of something white, maybe the sky, and then you see all the junk on your sensor. But anyway, I haven't heard a lot of talk anywhere about that sort of thing. I'm sure you've said it in the past, but maybe a refresher for me. I'd love to learn some more about it. And again, thank you very much from Dave Horn in California.
Hello, Dave. Thank you very much for the question. Dust. the big, scary dust bunny in your camera. Well, let me try to take that apart. There are different types of dust. First of all, you have like the regular dust particles in the air. There's pollen. There's lint. There are like different kinds of stuff that can get in your camera and get on your sensor. The way I would classify those is into different categories of stickiness. The regular dust gets shaken off during your automatic sensor cleaning pretty much. Pollen, not so much. Pollen sometimes has the tendency to stick to your sensor and not go away. And then there's lint. I'd say that probably would shake off. Animal hair, lots of different kinds of little things that might get in there. Even if you're wearing a fleece jacket, there are little pieces of lint coming off of that all the time. So there are lots of sources for the stuff in your camera. The question I sometimes hear is the problem that the sensor is electrostatically charged? Like if you rub a balloon at a woolen sweater, you will get some electrostatic charge there, and some people do claim that that's the case because the sensor is an electronic device. I'm not so sure about that. I think probably camera manufacturers have thought of that. Otherwise, you'd have the sensor caked in dust all the time, and that is clearly not the case. So how does the dust get in there? The thing is, dust is everywhere. Dust is everywhere. Usually we are not aware of it, but it hovers. It's in the air. And sometimes you can clearly see it there when there's like a thin sliver of sunshine coming in through a window. You'll see the dust hovering there. It just does that. Most of the time you don't notice because it's too small or it's not lit in a way that makes it obvious. But when it's lit, it's painfully obvious that we are surrounded by dust. Now, the problem is you cannot air seal a camera. A camera is pretty much open. I mean, not open as in you've taken off the lens, but whenever you focus or you zoom, your zoom lens is kind of like a bicycle pump. Yes, that's what it is. It displaces air. You zoom out, you zoom in, and there is this air that has to, or there is all of a sudden more space inside the camera, and it has to be filled with, well, air, of course. If you zoom out, air is to come in, and guess what? Air will come in. And with the air, dust comes in. Now, you might say, oh, I have an expensive L-class lens with a golden ring and stuff, and it has dust seals. Yep, it does. It does. These lenses sometimes have water seals and dust seals, so they are splash-proof against rain, and the worst dust will be kept out, but not all of it, because many of the dust particles are microscopically small. They don't care about those seals at all. By the way, the dust hovering in the air, also under normal circumstances, it won't really make any difference which way you point the opening of the camera while you're changing lenses. I've seen so many explanations and YouTube videos that show you that you have to point the opening of the camera down because otherwise dust is going to fall in. Yeah, it's not that the dust that hovers in the air all of a sudden decides that gravity, let me fall down straight into the camera. That's not really happening. Again, under normal circumstances. I wouldn't do this in the desert, for example. And of course, compared to one single one of the many million pixels in your camera sensor, a dust particle might be quite big and does become visible on the picture. But if you see something on your picture, what you're seeing isn't the actual dust speck, it is its shadow. The sensor is protected. There's a whole sandwich of filters in front of the sensor. There's an infrared shield, a UV filter, an anti-aliasing filter, and as these have a bit of a distance to the actual sensor, there's a bit of a gap there, whatever sits on that filter sandwich will cast a shadow onto your sensor. Which, by the way, also explains why you sometimes see those dust specks, most likely in the sky portions of your pictures, and sometimes you don't see them, because it has all to do with the size of the aperture. In case of the camera, that's the size of the light, of the light source that illuminates the sensor. It's like when you shoot a photo. You just imagine you have a point light source. The sun is out, right? The sun is a point light source. It'll cast harsh shadows. You look at your own shadow in the sun, and it has hard edges, and it's dark compared to the surroundings. And if you're shooting under an overcast sky, the overcast sky is a huge light source. So look at your shadow under an overcast sky. It will cast a very soft shadow if you see any shadow at all. And it's exactly the same with the dust in your camera. If you dial in a small aperture, let's say f22, you're turning this light source inside the camera into a very small light source. The dust specks on the filter sandwich will cast a harsh shadow. It's like the sun in the sky. And the dust will be very easily visible in your pictures. And if you shoot with a bigger aperture, let's say you shoot at f4, those shadows will be much more soft and hardly visible. So that really explains how you can find the spots. A small aperture, f22, f32, whatever your lens can do. The camera out of focus, pointing into the sky, or something that's kind of uniformly lit. A white wall will do as well. That will show you the harsh shadows, and you will be able to see them. By the way, interestingly enough, let me just bring this up, because just a few days ago I actually read up about this. If you ever wondered about those floaties in your eyes, when you look up into the sky, those you sometimes see these little things floating in front of your vision. Those are the shadows of tiny things floating inside of your eyes, not even on the front, inside your eyes. And if you look into the sky, your irises get smaller, which means your eye's apertures get smaller, and thus the shadows of those floaties, I think we can call them floaties, right, get more pronounced, and you can easier see them. And by the way, before you run out to ask a doctor if you're going to die from this, I've been told that having these floaties in your eyes is a perfectly normal thing, and everyone kind of has them. So next time you look up in the sky, not into the sun, don't look into the sun, it's dangerous. But next time you look into the sky, check for those floaties. And by the way, the reason they are floating, well, the fact that they're floating inside your eyes actually also explains why you can't really look at them well, because when you move your eyes, they will move with your eyes. Anyway, back to the sensor dust. How do you get rid of sensor dust? Well, first of all, I have to admit I have not cleaned a sensor in ages. The reason being that modern cameras have, on that filter sandwich in front of the camera, they have what's called a fluoride coating, which makes it pretty non-sticky, pretty hard for stuff to stick onto it. And then there is a mechanism built into the camera that shakes the sensor. Yep, shake it, baby. It is like a piezo thing attached to the side of the sandwich, and it shakes it, and that makes the sensor dust fall off the sensor most of the time. And then cameras often have like a glue strip somewhere inside the camera, so there's like a sticky film that is in there and that the dust will hopefully stick to. Now, that doesn't always work. Again, some of the dust is a bit more sticky, like pollen, for example, that might stick to the sensor. So there might be the need to clean the sensor. If it's really bad, then cleaning the sensor. There's nothing wrong with cleaning your sensor. There are so many different kinds. Let me just name a few of them. There are these single-use sensor swabs. They are individually packaged. They are pretty much a little rubber spatula, the size of your sensor, the width of your sensor, wrapped in a lint-free cloth kind of thing. And then you they sell you a liquid that goes with the cleaning liquid. If you look that up in forums, there's a lot of discussion about this. Some say it's just isopropanol. And if that's true, the margin on those cleaning liquids is making them a ton of money. I don't know. They claim that obviously you have to buy the right liquid for the right type of camera. I haven't experimented with that yet. But again, you will find forums that discuss that to excess. And you don't need a lot of this liquid, like a drop or two for a cleaning pass, and that'll do. There is another method, which are brushes that you will electrostatically charge. So they claim that by rotating that brush with a little motor, it charges electrostatically and it shakes off all the dust. And then when you swipe the sensor with it, the charge will pretty much make the dust jump into the brush and then stick to it. Again, there's some controversial discussion here. Does that actually work or not? Maybe you're just brushing it off with a mechanical way. There is one other that I've tried years ago, and it's the stamp type dust removal tool. It's like a sticky pad that comes with a handle, and you will then slightly press that against the sensor, and the sticky pad picks up the dust, and that did work reasonably well. If you've been a long-time listener of Tips from the Top Floor, go back to episode 186, because I talked about a very scary method there called disco film, which is actually a very interesting thing. You used to be used for vinyl LPs to pull the dust out of the grooves, and it worked really well there. And it also worked quite well to take dust off the sensor, but you had to use a brush and paint on the sensor with a sticky, gooey liquid, and that would then dry, and you could pull it off with the dust. And it used to work well before sensors had fluoride coatings. Now it doesn't stick as well, and I haven't used it since, so I still have like a original 1970s bottle of disco film in my somewhere in one of my cabinets, sitting in the back, waiting to find some other use. I also don't listen to vinyl LPs. My personal approach, okay, that's probably what you've been waiting to hear. My personal approach is let the camera take care of it. Most of the time, that'll just do the trick. If it doesn't get one of those blowers, like there's this rocket blower. I think rocket blower is a brand name. There are others like a bulb, rubber bulb blowers kind of things. And 90% of the time, that will fix the problem. You blow the dust right off the sensor. Again, small aperture, take a test shot, look at it on a computer, and you'll pretty instantly see if you still have the problem or not. About once a year, I might get something stuck on the sensor that needs cleaning, and then I will use the swabs with a cleaning liquid. Make sure to read the instructions, and also YouTube has videos about how to do that. And the one tool that I use to help me find the dust and kind of check without having to take the test picture is I use a sensor loop, which is a magnifying glass with LEDs on the bottom of it. I found it a pretty good way to inspect where the dust specks are. By the way, the picture on the sensor is upside down, so if you have dust specks on the top of the picture, they will be at the bottom of the sensor. And then I use that to check if I caught the specs. But, don't spend too much money. Unless you're a professional camera cleaner who cleans sensors all the time, don't buy something super expensive. It's one of those gadgets I use maybe once a year. And if you're really afraid to damage the sensor or to scratch the filter sandwich, well, then go to your camera dealer. Chances are, if that's the place where you bought the camera, they will do it for free. And otherwise, they might just clean it for a nominal fee. So it's not really expensive usually. If you don't live anywhere near a camera shop, send it into the service or give them a call to your manufacturer's service and ask them what they take for cleaning the sensor. But honestly, most of the time, I don't care about sensor dust. That's the big secret. If those dust speck shadows show up on my photos in the sky, I will clone them out. I'll use Lightroom's clone brush and go click, 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 and then 5-6 spots later, they're gone. If they show up on many pictures, like in landscape shots, I might have taken 20, 30, 40 pictures. I will use Lightroom's feature to copy the clone spots between the pictures. And I'm pretty sure other packages will do the same. But I found this pretty easy with Lightroom. So that's a quick batch operation. And if they show up in a part of the picture that is not the sky, they're typically unnoticeable. You can't see them because there's so much going on in the picture that even a small shadow doesn't really register. So I don't really care about them. I would rather spend my time shooting than obsessing over the dust. Hey, hello and welcome. This is Tips from the Top Floor. My name is Chris Marquardt and this show's coming to you from the Viewfinder Villa right outside of Hanover in Germany. You know what? Tips from the Top Floor is 10 years old. 10 effing years old. April the 18th, 2005. That's when I posted the very first episode of Tips from the Top Floor. And this is what it sounded like.
This is Tips from the Top Floor, brought to you by Chris Marquardt.
You are sleeping. You do not want to believe. You are sleeping.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Chris Marquardt, and this is the very, 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 very first show that I'm doing. That's my first podcast at all, my first radio show. I've never done something like that before.
Oh my God, stop it. This is embarrassing. All right, let me see. The show actually did change over time, and with different intros and things. And longtime listeners I won't bore you with the details, but hey, it's been 10 years. It's been 680 episodes. That's 68 episodes per year. That's like 1.3 episodes per week. Hey, I'm still way over doing one episode per week. I'm really proud of that. And I don't really know how many minutes that is, but if I take the average length of let's say 20 minutes per show, then that's 13,600 minutes. 13,600 minutes of Tips from the Top Floor in total. That's 226 hours. If you'd be listening to Tips from the Top Floor nonstop 24/7, that would be 9.4 days of listening straight through. So if you just found the show, and if you're inclined to go back to the beginning and listen to everything, yeah, take 10 days off. You will need them. Anyway, just want to say thank you. Thank you all so much for helping make this show what it is. I mean, when I started 10 years ago, it was really not planned that it would turn out this way. I thought initially I would record maybe 10 episodes and that would be it. That's how naive I was back then. And the audience grew so fast that pretty soon I just couldn't not do it, because I started getting complaints from people when I skipped a week, and people went, "Hey, where's my show? I want my Tips from the Top Floor." So I stuck to it, It's all your fault. And I thank you for making me stick to doing this, because it's been the ride of my life. And actually, to be honest, every single thing I do today was enabled by this podcast, by Tips from the Top Floor. I've met amazing people through this show. I've met Monica because of the show. I've had amazing opportunities thanks to this show, including the repeated travel to Mount Everest, to Ethiopia now, to Iceland, to the United States, to Canada, to the UK, and in just a few weeks, even to India. And I've been able to share all this with fellow photographers, which is a wonderful experience. So Tips from the Top Floor has been the big enabler for me. It's been a wonderful experience. And I'm very, very grateful for all that's been happening because of this show. And again, I'm obviously most grateful that so many of you are around, that you listen, that you care for the show. Because if it wasn't for you, this show would just not be there. So, thank you.
Down on that instrument. People, there is music in your head. There's music playing in your head. So listen to every word I said. There's music playing in your head. Pay attention. Oh, you've got.
And here we go. The call for your voices. I want you on the show. I want to hear your voices on the show. That is what makes Tips from the Top Floor. And again, doesn't have to be just a question. Maybe you came across something happened to you in terms of photography that might be interesting to others. Hey, let me know. Send it in. It's really easy. Go to tfttf.com, click the orange tab, and then just record something. And you get to re-listen before you send it off, so you don't have to embarrass yourself. And you can just use your phone's voice memo thing and send it to me in an email to info@tipsfromthetopfloor.com, or pick up the phone 206-202-3757. That's in the United States, or internationally +44 7005 805 742. And if you want to see all these options again on your browser, go to tfttf.com/askme. I want to hear from you. Let me take a minute and thank this week's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by lynda.com, the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. I could go on and talk about the different videos and things that are on lynda.com, but today I want to pick out something that has blown me away. Now, many of us have used Photoshop for years and have a history with Photoshop, a hate-love relationship with Photoshop. And lynda.com has a lot of Photoshop tutorials and courses and classes, really well-produced stuff. And Photoshop just has its 25th anniversary, and they have a microsite with a lot of free content that I want to point you to. Yesterday night, I opened that up and just expecting like a few videos here and there, and I was blown away. Go to lynda.com, lynda.com/25ps. lynda.com/25ps. And it's this mixture of a lot of great tutorials from the lynda.com catalog for free. So you get to watch a lot of stuff for free. There are tutorials on a lot of things. There is a section called Insight and Inspiration where actually several artists go through their projects and talk you through how they did it. There's one who's doing a composite of an Iceland landscape with ice and fire. Another one does a 3D rendered birthday balloon. James White illustrates his laser horse, which is amazing. There's a whole section on Photoshop and journalism. There are different people relaying their Photoshop story, and then in retrospect, you get to look back and how this whole thing came along from the first version, from how it transitioned partially into Lightroom. They look at the evolution of the tool palette. They look at how things were before Photoshop. There's an amazing video about how the graphic design process worked in the analog days with X-Acto knives and letter set letters and lines and cutting things and gluing them and rubber cement and stuff like that. It's an amazing thing. I expected to spend a few minutes there. I ended up spending almost 2 hours on that site, and it was worth every second. So go there, lynda.com/25ps, and look at that. Lynda.com is for problem solvers, for the curious, for people who want to make things happen. And again, maybe you want to master Photoshop, Lightroom, learn negotiation tactics with your clients, build a website, or just boost your skills with the tool. Go to lynda.com and feed your curious mind. Your lynda.com membership will give you unlimited access to training on hundreds of topics, all for one flat fee. Whether you're looking to become an expert, you're passionate about a hobby, you want to try something new, I want you to visit lynda.com/topfloor and sign up for your free 10-day trial. That's lynda.com/topfloor. And I thank them so much for their support.
Down on that instrument.
I did tell you frequently that I will be in the United States in October for the Coast to Coast tour, which is a workshop in New York City, which is getting close to selling out, so you should be quick there. And San Diego, where I'm teaming up with Sonny Portacio for a few days of photography with you guys. And again, a few seats open on that one as well. And Sonny also is a podcaster and a blogger, and he just sent me a little photo tip for you.
Hey, Sunny here. Here's a smartphone photography tip for you. Use a circular polarizing filter as you would on a more sophisticated higher-end camera. Now, I've compared shots I've taken with and without a polarizing filter, and as expected, there's a remarkable difference depending on the situation. And here are my suggestions. Find a small, pocketable polarizing filter. If you're out shooting with your smartphone, just slip it in your pocket and you'll barely notice it's there. I carry a 52mm just for this reason. It wasn't that expensive either. Now, when you see a scene that could benefit from a polarizing filter, get yourself ready to use it, and here's a pro tip. I'll get the smartphone to take a picture and hold it in my right hand. Then with my left hand, I'll prime the polarizing filter. I'll rotate it near my eye to get the most effective rotational angle. Then I'll lock it in that position, and as I bring the smartphone back up behind the filter. Now, to reduce the glare coming from the backside of the filter, put the smartphone camera lens as close to the backside of the filter as you can. The closer, the better. Make minor adjustments with your left hand if you need to, then take the shots. It's actually pretty easy with a little practice, and you'll get some really nice noticeable results, so get out there and give it a try. Now, for more tips on how to make amazing images with your smartphone or compact camera, head over to Pocket Lenses at pocketlenses.com. Stay agile and keep on shooting.
Hi Chris, I've just got a question that popped into my mind today after a shoot. I was going through my RAW files afterwards, and I noticed that some of the photos didn't pop as much as I thought they would, composition and light-wise, and I got the feeling that maybe when I don't have a camera in my hands, I've actually got a better photographer's eye for things and finding good compositions, things like that. And when I do have a camera, I'm thinking just quickly get the shots before the light goes away, and I get this rush of sort of excitement. And so I was just wondering if you knew what was going on there and how to avoid that. Thanks for that.
Okay, let's see. The camera doesn't take the pictures that you envision. Why is that? And I think that's something that happens to many photographers, especially when you don't have like 10, 20 years under your belt yet. Okay, so there's a few reasons why the pictures sometimes don't come out the way you want them. The first is the camera sees the world differently than you do. You know, it'll look differently at contrasts. The focal length is an important thing that doesn't work like our eyes do. You know, you have a field of view and you have a magnification, and if you look at like a 50mm lens, people say that sees the world pretty similar to what the eye sees. And maybe in terms of magnification, that is kind of right, but you know, our eyes have a much wider field of view. So there's really a big difference between what the camera does and what you do. And as a photographer, your job is to do a bit of translation work there. Your job is to understand the language that the camera speaks and understand the language that your audience speak, and make sure that you translate the one thing into the other. And that's a process that will take a while. The camera sees colors differently. And you know, the camera will typically try to take a lot of decisions for you. And it will get things wrong. And that's in terms of, the contrast, the colors, the focus. And it does that simply because it has no idea what your intentions are with the shot. The camera doesn't know what you want. It can't read your mind. Now, you can, of course, fix a few things after the shot, like you can fix some contrasts, you can fix colors a bit in post-processing. That's one reason why my photos pretty much all go through at least a bit of color correction and contrast correction. It's not because I get things wrong in camera. It's because I can nudge the picture a bit more towards what I want to tell. Maybe give it a bit more warmth and tell a bit of a different story this way. Or maybe make the contrasts a bit harsher and help tell the story this way. Second, 2D versus 3D. You see the world through your two eyes. You have that's a difficult word to say, a stereoscopic vision. And the camera makes that into a 2D projection, you know. The depth gets lost. There is no depth. And many things that pop do that because there is depth in there. Even if you close one eye, you will still have a better depth perception as your camera with its one eye because you move and the camera doesn't. So every slight move you make with your head will translate into some parallax motion in the scene that will inform your brain about the depth of the shot. So you have to recreate that. You have to kind of give the viewer hints about what the depth in the picture is, and you can do this using depth of field or layering of your composition. Landscape photographers love doing that. Typical landscape composition has a strong foreground and something interesting in the middle ground and an interesting background and all these layers. Maybe some of them are even connected through some lines in the picture, and that's one way to kind of recreate the depth in a picture. But most importantly, I think it's about perception. You know, what you see in a picture will always be the sum of what you know, of your experiences, of your culture. There are so many things that your subconscious will factor into the picture. You know, it's way more than what your visual system tells you. It's way more than what you see with your eyes. And then you also have a lot of sensory inputs during taking the shot, during the shoot, that get lost in the process. You know, there's temperature, there's wind, there's sounds, there's smells, there's music, there's whatever, other people around you. All that's left over in the end is going to be a two-dimensional photo, just a flat visual representation of that. All the rest is inside you. All the rest is, I call that your backpack full of experiences. You have this backpack. Everyone has that backpack on the back with all those experiences of all their life and the culture they live in. And if you try to translate that into a 2D picture, a lot of that has to get lost in the process. And that's just a fact. And you can do a few things that will help kind of bring some of that back. Now, here's the good thing. If you keep practicing, you will become better. If you keep shooting, you will improve. If you go to the gym every day, you'll build muscle. If you practice the guitar every day, you'll become a better guitar player. Things might not move as quickly as you'd like them to move. I'm a very impatient person. There were things in my life that I've given up because I wasn't patient enough to and I wasn't willing to put all the work in. But that's what takes apart many good photographers from the mediocre ones. The good ones are often the ones who stuck with it. The ones who kept trying, the ones who kept practicing, the ones who were a bit driven, the ones who kept doing it despite not always getting amazing results. And then piece by piece, day by day, you will become better and better until you're a really awesome photographer. And that was it for this 10-year anniversary episode of Tips from the Top Floor. Thank you so much for listening. You can support the show on Patreon, get rewards for your support, find everything at tfttf.com/Patreon. And a big thank you to all the patrons who already support Tips from the Top Floor. Music for the show by Jeff Smith, by the Natives of the Nudon, Hans-Peter Kagerud. Publishing of the show is done by Release Pixie, Matt, Ravsitar Armstead, and here is your quote of the day. This one is a bit different. It's an article I found on DIYphotography.net. It's written by Missy M. Wack, and it's from April the 22nd, 2015. I'm going to link to this in the show notes. Excuse me? Why? Yes, my camera does take great pictures. Thank you for noticing that. You have a keen eye and a very good sense about these things. Not everyone does. Well done. But can I share something with you? I mean, no disrespect to my camera, but it didn't used to take great pictures. I mean, not at all. I bought it because I'd heard how good these nicer cameras were, so I was expecting great things from mine. But when I got home and opened the box, it didn't do anything. Nothing at all. For what I paid, I expected it to jump out of the box and work with people to get great expressions and select locations and create natural posing and compose images filled with warmth and beauty and light. But nope. Nada, zip, zilch. What a loser it was. It simply refused to do anything. It just lay there, motionless, like me after my 5th margarita. I thought it was broken. I even considered taking it back to the store to replace it with one of those nicer cameras that take the great pictures. And then a thought occurred to me. If the camera was going to take the great pictures, I was going to have to show it what to do, kind of like a puppy. And so I've worked with it over the years. We've trained together almost every day. It hasn't been easy. There were times I let it try to do it on its own. And sure enough, it blew out the sky or put the wrong part of the image in focus, and we had to start over. It was frustrating. But after a lot of hard work and dedication, it's finally taking those great pictures. So again, thank you for the compliment and for liking my great pictures. It's taken years of training, but I think finally my camera gets it. I love this article. I'm completely in love with it. Thanks Missy M. Wack for writing it, and thanks DIYphotography.net for posting this. Everyone go over to DIYphotography.net Check them out. All right, and I'll be back with another C.J. Chilvers quote from his book, A Lesser Photographer, next week. So I'm not stopping that, okay? All right, my name is Chris Marquardt. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Marquardt. That's Chris, Marquardt. Leave a review on iTunes. Recommend the show to others. That's the only way others find out about the show, by you recommending the show to them. And if you want to find out more about this show and see the links in this episode, go to tfttf.com/680. Until next time, go out, take amazing photos, and here's to another 10 years of happy shooting.